are listening to LOA Recon with the Good Vibe coach Jeanette Ma, where we dissect the ins and outs and the art and science of conscious creation, all intended to amp up your manifesting game. Let's have some fun together. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I was thinking on something that I thought might be worth sharing here. You know, I kind of got this habit of, I've been trying to love this about me instead of judge or be embarrassed about this, but I have this habit of sometimes, occasionally, I interrupt people, and that's not a very coach-like thing to do. We're supposed to be such good listeners. And there I am, interrupting so often. In fact, I read an astrologer. I've got Aries on the cusp of the third house, and one astrological interpretation was that they tend to interrupt. I was like, oh, I do. That's why. But you know what? I actually think this can be a helpful trait, especially when it comes to our conscious creation. Because sometimes I'm in session with a client and they'll be telling a story. They haven't even gotten to the important part yet, but I start editing some parts for them. Like they'll say something like, I'm trying to let that go. And I'll be like, or maybe you'll just let that go instead of try to. Maybe you're letting that go. Because it seems like our chances of success are better when we decide to instead of try to. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, sure, Jeanette, whatever. That's not even the important part. And then through the whole thing, though, I'm just making tweaks. I just keep seeing where our stories are sabotaging us and how we can just tell it, just to a little tweak here and a little tweak there, set ourselves up for better success. Like someone will be saying, my boss didn't even understand what needed to be done. And I'll say, well, maybe she had other priorities she was focused on. Maybe she understood something differently. Maybe she wasn't deliberately thwarting you. Maybe she just thought you had it covered and she was dialed somewhere else. You never know. It's not worth creating bad guys where they don't exist, right? Unless our story really needs a bad guy right now. Sometimes they do. But if we got enough of those, let's not stir up more unnecessarily. I hopefully say it nicer than that when I'm in session with a client, but sometimes they'll be like, oh, my husband wasn't supporting me the way I needed him to. And I'll come to a defense of a husband because this is good for both of us. If we want to keep this husband and have a happy marriage, maybe we want to rethink the way we're talking him into being in our relationship. Maybe it wasn't that he wasn't supporting you maybe he was supporting in a different way that you didn't recognize. Maybe he didn't know what kind of support you needed. Or maybe it really was supportive for him to not go all in with you when you were doing that downward spiral routine. Maybe that was a good way to support and you just didn't recognize it as such at the time. Maybe. Or maybe instead of telling the story he did it once and that's how he always is, maybe we could just recognize, that one time maybe, instead of pin him to be that way all the time. I'm just saying, maybe there's another way to see it or speak it that feels better. Just maybe. It's worth getting more creative and giving ourselves more freedom in how we're telling some of our stories, and I will interrupt on some occasions. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Conscious creators know the power of our stories, right? We're not muggles. We're not stuck in our stories. We know to mold them around our desires. But sometimes, even conscious creators underestimate the true power of our story. When we're knee-deep in a real-life problem, it's not unusual to believe that fixing it requires some crazy, powerful force of intervention, something more powerful than a thought, for the love. Sometimes problems just seem so real and our thoughts seem so abstract or flimsy. Like we need something more we need something better than that. I sometimes hear Abraham talking to someone in their hot seat and they're telling their story. And Abraham will be like, they're telling them a different version, like a softer version, a version of the story that still got enough truth in it that they can relate to it, but it points them in a better direction. But the hot seater just keeps going back to it. Like it's like they think Abraham didn't hear him or they don't understand how bad it is. And Abraham's like, the story you're telling is what's making the difference here. And they don't really fully get it. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, fine, sure. I will tell a better story about it. But really, Abraham, how do I fix this? Give me something good. As if the story wasn't enough. It's like when someone suggests that all they have to do is tell it differently. They're like, if it were that easy, don't you think I'd have done that a long time ago? I need a real solution here. And yet, a new story is not only the catalyst for resolving whatever predicament we're facing, the story is also the perpetuator of it. Any problem, it can't continue to be without our continued investment in it. It's the story. It's the story, sweetheart. I just heard that as, oh, who was it? Was someone, political advisor, talking to Bill Clinton or someone saying, it's the economy, stupid? I would not call anyone stupid, but I would say it's the story, sweetheart. That's the power of stories. They create and transform. They sabotage and support. They morph and mold our realities with every telling. Like the guy who sat in Bashar's seat to ask about, he wanted to know the truth about the Illuminati. He had some version of it that was not sounding all that fun, and Bashar interrupted him. Yay for interrupting sometimes. Some stories are worth interrupting. Bashar interrupted him and he said, is this what you want? And the guy's like, well, duh, obviously no, but is it what's happening? And Bashar's response was, if it's not what you want, stop talking about it, because talking about it is what makes it so. If you don't want it, don't talk about it. And the guy's like, look, I just wanted to know, is this what's going on or what? Like he didn't get that his story is that powerful. He didn't get that his story, his telling of it was creating it. Oh my gosh, one day my good girlfriend, she was telling me a story about her son. It was not a good story. It was a story of a drug overdose and in the hospital and might not make it, and maybe it might have even been in. It was a bad story. It was not a good story. No one would want that story to be true. And I didn't even let her. It wasn't even my son and I wouldn't let her tell that story. I said, that is not the story. I told it differently that he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine, not just survive this, but beyond. He's going to be fine. And, sometimes when you're stuck in it, it's hard when fear and gremlins or, it's so stormy. Sometimes you need someone to interrupt and say, yeah, we're going to tell this one different. Here's how it goes. Oh, my word, I loved it so much. Oh, what was I watching? Oh, it was the best show ever. It was Tony Hale. Oh, it was Being the Ricardos. The story of Lucille. Well, not the story of, but she was in trouble. She was in hot water. They were going to call her a communist or something. Her career was going to be over. And, it did not look good for her. And Tony Hale, I love the characters he plays. This was so uncharacteristic for who he was in this story too, but and it looked really bad. He said something so powerful to me. I'll say it without the swear words. Sometimes, though, a good story's got swear words in it. He said, like this, it was going to happen. It was going to go down. It was happening right now. And he said to her, if I say it so forcefully, I'm going to alarm everyone in hearing range, including Harvey, who's sleeping peacefully. But he said it forcefully. He said, listen to me. Memorize this. And he gave her a one-line story that was their best shot at solving the major problems she was facing. It was so cool. The power of a story. And it was short and it was succinct, and he knew she needed to memorize it because it was going to be bad when she was talking with people. She was going to need something short and simple. It was so cool. He gave her a powerful spell, is what he did. That's what our stories are. I've got a story worth changing. I was putting some investment in it last year, especially as things seem to be getting worse about climate change. I was telling some stories like, it seems to be getting worse. Like, this isn't good, people. Almost like, I'm trying to wake people up. Like, this is really bad. Have you seen this, that, or the other? And you know what? I realized, Jeanette, maybe that's one worth telling differently. I, of all people, know the power of story. Why would I join in everyone else's version that I don't even like? I can tell it different before reality is different because I've got those skills. I can tell the story of how the planet is getting even better or how climate change is a good thing. It could be that for me. Everyone else could have it different if they want, but I know how to have it my way. They can have it their way. We don't all have to agree. That's one of my first ways that I'm good at telling my own story is that I don't need everyone else to agree with me. You can have your version. I'm going to tell a different one. And I've got the even better story down. Why wouldn't I include the planet in it? I got good traction and even better stories. And I know it'll be for me whatever I'm willing to speak consistently, repeatedly, until it's my dominant vibration. That's what it has to be for me. That's how it works. When we don't like what we've got, conscious creators can turn to the story we tell as our first and most important tool of change. We have to stop telling it like it is if we expect it to be any different. Because waiting for reality to cue us for a new story makes for a long wait. Reality is awaiting our cue through how we speak and think it into being. And I know, tell it different seems so unsatisfying to someone who thinks they're dealing with a real problem, a tricky situation, and that rethinking it isn't enough. They need something more. Rethinking it is all there is. It really is that simple. Our entire reality is arising from how we think it. It always starts there. You can tell a different story. Let's recognize when it's worth doing that. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Happy manifesting.